What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago in Delhi, India. And we believe this for multiple reasons.
What happened there?
It was basically a terrorist group, Lashkar-e-Taiba. They did a number, it's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks into Delhi, at a hotel, the Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking, and they could change the modus operandi they were using.
So let that sink in a little bit. 1,500 terrorists trained and infiltrated into the United States. The goal is 60,000 casualties in 2025. The only way I can not live in fear is to make sure that I'm absolutely prepared for the situation, and then I have enough oomph in whatever I'm doing to make sure that I can get my family out.
The original goals of Osama bin Laden, right? One is to push the U.S. out of the Middle East. That's the wave of attacks that had the Israel attack, right? It's going to be the wave of attacks or the embassy attacks, right? Because it's to push us out of embassies in the Middle East, like they're targeting U.S. Embassy Baghdad, for example, right? Makes perfect sense. And then there is the restoration of the caliphate. So the Syria push is the restoration of the caliphate. The Mali push is the restoration of the caliphate. So he's just doing his father's old goals, but faster, and he's using all the other terrorist groups to make it happen. It's not going to be Al-Qaeda breaching these goals. It's going to be Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whomever. And the way that they're dealing with it is when they're sitting down making these agreements. So when they sat down and talked, if you've read our October 7th Know Thy Enemy report, you know this all started with the Hamas attacks, right? That was one of Al-Qaeda's planned attack, and we can talk more about that one later. So they have kind of like these waves against Israel. And then they have like waves against Europe, waves against us, waves to create the Islamic Caliphate, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the African plotting, for example, is the waves to create the Islamic Caliphate. So the Islamic Caliphate is basically, obviously, Afghanistan, Syria. That's why they've trained a lot. What's going on right now, Iraq. They're in a dream world. They have India on it. And then it's like all of North Africa. And then in a future phase, it then goes up into Spain, right? Like in the olden days. So it's just all their plots they have in place to put into motion these elements. And so their embassy plots, for example, the Hamas attacks was like less than 1,500 guys, right? They actually initially planned to train them from August 7th, 2022 to October 7th, 2022. They ended up pushing the attack a year, and so they ended up with more training, which helped the attackers because of Zawahiri's assassination. So then the U.S. homeland, for example, they want to use 1,000 terrorists, right? So that took time to put the 1,000 through the pipeline. Syria, they trained 10,000 terrorists to send to Syria. It takes time to put 10,000 terrorists through the pipeline, right? So it depends on the size and the camp capacity, and then the type of training, right? Are you putting them through suicide bomber training? That's its own camps, and that's about 20% of the camps they run. Are you putting them through advanced urban warfare?
Of an Al-Qaeda training camp, and it was almost like a display. It looked like a well-done YouTube video of skills. Is that common?
Yeah, but that's a step down. So
that was really good.
That's Taliban. Those are the Taliban camps. So we can't get those kind of videos out of the Al-Qaeda camps. As you can imagine, you can't even bring phones into the Al-Qaeda camps. So so Al-Qaeda is even a level above those.
I mean, I'm going to overlay that video for the audience to see just how sharp these guys are getting. I mean, that's really good. Well, when I saw that, it scared the shit out of me.
Remember, their life is they train all the time.
Yeah.
So if that's all you're doing all day long, I mean, you're going to get really competent at it. And then they have different emotions behind it, too. And, different beliefs and the religion behind it, too, which makes you more devout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then...
So let that sink in a little bit. 1,500 terrorists trained and infiltrated into the United States. The goal is 60,000 casualties in 2025. Think about that. I'm going to say it. Do you want to be one of those 60,000 people? If not, you better start taking some different actions. First thing I took after talking to my intelligence people and the people that I know in the community and a number of other people I have that are around the events, I started carrying. Much as I hate to say it, like it's just a fact of life. I don't necessarily like guns, but I do like the ability to protect my family. We had a family sit down, okay? Some things we're going to do differently. We're going to make sure that if we go out in public, we're in large areas with large populations of people that we don't have headphones on. We all have our eyes on a swivel, okay? I have younger kids. We've talked to our younger kids about evacuation plans. We've talked about when the bullets start flying, run. I think it's important to understand that if you look at what happened on October 7th, everything I'm hearing is they're going to try to mirror those attacks, much like what happened in New Orleans. So a guy in New Orleans with a truck was able to kill 14 people, severely injure another 50. I think if he had done it better, he could have got a lot better results. I think we got lucky with that body count, if you call it that. So this video today is going to be a preparation video of what you can do to prepare, how you can be vigilant, and what you need to do long-term to allow your family to prosper and go forward. Now, my wife made a very good statement. We're not going to live in fear. The only way I can not live in fear is to make sure that I'm absolutely prepared for the situation. And then I have enough oomph in whatever I'm doing to make sure that I can get my family out. So let that sink in a little bit. 1,500 terrorists trained and infiltrated into the United States. The goal is 60,000 casualties in 2025. You heard me talk about it last night on the War Room podcast. If you want to go hear it, there's 5 special operations dudes on there. We talked about it last night. That's a great place to go see. What would you do differently? What do you need to do to be prepared? I'm going to talk about some stuff that's happened in my life in this video to kind of help you just understand what you need to be thinking about. Okay? So let's start. First thing I'm going to tell you is a great story. So 2004 Northeast power grid attack. Okay? Power was out in the Northeast for almost 3.5 days. It was getting to the point where there's going to be massive civil unrest. My fiance at the time was in Detroit working for Henry Ford Health System. And we had a plan, man. She had 3/4 of a tank of gas. We weren't quite sure if it was going to be enough to get to one of the working gas stations down south in Ohio. So we had a solid plan, man. She was going to drive south on 75. She was going to, when she ran out of gas, she was going to be past an exit roughly. And she was going to park her car. And then she was going to flatten her tires. And she was going 200 yards and make a hide site. My plan was I was going to jack a plane. I was going to land on that freeway, get my wife, and then I would take off from that same freeway and be out. And I'll be back on the East Coast before anybody knew what happened. Now, that plan, right? I know how to fly. I got a unique set of skills that allows me to execute that plan. Let's talk about our current plan, okay? If you live in a major populous city and you get hit with a major terrorist attack, it is going to be complete bedlam from the beginning. Go look at the stories of Katrina down in Louisiana of what happened immediately following the hurricane. Do not think that there will not be civil unrest immediately. Okay, I'm going to provide a link in this video to 1 second after. It's a great wiki page. It's an apocalyptic book that'll let you understand what you're going to face in the immediate days of aftermath. And I'm just going to tell you this. The average person can walk about 12 miles. Think about that, 12 miles. So it's not like, don't plan on walking to another state. You ain't going to make it, okay? So you got to have a plan. I know our plan is we are located in San Antonio, man. Like San Antonio, Texas, there's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of water down here. There's not a lot of food. You know, if you get outside the city, yes, but it's a city of 3 million, okay? If you stay in the city, I don't care how much guns you have, how much ammunition, you're going to get killed. All major cities are going to see a huge population reduction if there's a breakdown of social services, i.e. the police force, okay? Now, one of the things I got going for me is 500,000 service members in this town. But 500 service members divided and up in communities, I know my street is going to be okay. But if 5,000 people come walking down my street, I don't care who's here, we're not going to be okay. So you need to think about the bigger picture. Preparedness. Tourniquets. I say 2 tourniquets for everybody in your family. How are you going to carry all this stuff? Well, we have a backpack. All right. Tourniquet, quick clot, water purification. I have a go bag, obviously. I have a bunch of stuff in that go bag. And, you know, we got GPS and all that other stuff. I'm not even talking about no apocalypse stuff. I'm not talking about EMP pulse. I'm just talking about you find yourself in a massive, you know, coordinated mall attack, correct? Like 5 terrorists with AK-47s in a mall, just killing people. And you need to exfil the area. What is your plan? What is your plan if you get separated from your family, right? My kids, we know. We've talked about it, okay? When we park the car is the rally point. If you come out the other side of the mall, make your way around outside of the danger zone and get to the car, okay? If not, get to a person in uniform and stay there. We'll come get you, all right? Because the worst thing you want is your 9-year-old looking for you in the mall, walking around, okay? They got to understand what they need to do. Think about that. They got to understand what you need to do. I'm going to tell you this. You need to practice it. Okay. We were out at an event earlier this week and we practiced a little bit. Wasn't massive, but I just got it in their heads. Okay. Where's the rally point? The car. Okay. What happens? Boom. We got gunfire down there. Where do we run? Okay. Do we seek cover? Cover, but then we're gone. Okay. So Nate said it best. Active shooters only hit 3% of people that are running. Think about that. I'd rather be running and take my chances with 3% than hiding and get killed like the gentleman in the Miami shooting, the 9 people that were hiding in the bathroom and just allowed the attacker to come in there and murder all 9 of them hiding in the bathroom. We're not hiding in the Zweig family. We're out. The other thing to think about is if you're armed and you want to be, you know, the upright citizen and get involved, let me tell you something, man. It ain't going to end well. Okay? Think about it this way, man. If one of my kids gets shot, they're dead. If my wife gets shot, she's dead. If I get shot in a situation like that, there's a good chance I'm going to die. This isn't a combat operation where you got a PJ standing right next to you that can patch you up, stop the bleeding, and help you survive. It's not. You're going to be responsible for your own wound care. Let me tell you something. There's a good chance you might not be conscious. You're not going to be able to do wound care. So don't try to be Wyatt Earp or fucking, you know, one of them Wild West dudes with a gun thinking you're going to save the world. You know, you let the good guys do that, get your family out of town. Let's go back to this a little bit, man. This shit is real, man. I saw this 3 weeks ago. I've been talking about it. This is a real deal here.
And we had a little brief discussion about suicide, the invisible bomb vests downstairs. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of one of those things that keep you up at night, right? You know, when we're talking about the threats to the homeland, you know, if you subscribe to the newsletter, Sean Ryan's newsletter, go to Vigilant Elite.
So for everybody that doesn't know already, Sarah writes a weekly intelligence report, all things.
Did 2 things that are very dishonest to the public. One is they made us think this was a lone wolf ISIS bomber, right? It wasn't. This was a...
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago in Delhi, India. And we believe this for multiple reasons.
What happened there?
It was basically a terrorist group, Lashkar-e-Taiba. They did a number, it's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks into Delhi, at a hotel, the Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking and they could change the modus operandi they were using. For example, when they went into the train station, it was supposed to be a bombing. When they got in there, they said, wow, we can kill more people just shooting them than putting the bomb together, and they shot them. Another thing that they did is in real time, information was being passed to them. So when they were in the Taj Mahal, they were being told what was on the press and what the police were doing, and they changed basically some of their movements in the hotel to make the attack last longer, okay? So this is the part that's going to be different, right? So Al-Qaeda always wants to innovate when it does its next attack, right? So I've already told you about the innovation of the suicide vests. Well, do you know we really haven't had a suicide bombing in the United States ever? There's the Nashville guy who did the strange, blew himself up in the car early in the morning when no one was around. That's kind of it.
The AT&T building?
Yep. So we have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on in the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. Do you know what this is? I mean, you'll know when I explain it. If you fought in, like, I don't know, Ramadi, Fallujah, you've seen these. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead, right? So this can go on for multiple days, like the plan was for Mumbai, for example. So we think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests, right? And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed. The Fideian matters, right? I was watching, I want to say it was like 8 months ago.
Let me just rephrase that. So these guys are trained, and we already overlaid the video of their training, and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right? So I was watching this video, and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. And it was the bomber blew up, okay? And then everyone starts moving in. The first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, right? But if Americans don't understand this as a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, think about that. So battle's going on. The attacker surrenders, right? He might have the suicide vest. We let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's going to fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness, right?
Let that sink in, folks. Guys, I'm making this video to help you better understand what you need to do to be prepared. I'm telling you right now, if you think I'm going in to help people when this shit's going on, you're wrong. I'm getting my family out of there and I'm letting the good guys come in. Now, I will say this, if it's a school and they're fucking up our schools, I'm rolling, okay? But understand this, the tactics they're using have not been seen in the United States. Suicide bomber on top of suicide bomber on top of guys with guns. Think about that. Think about how much carnage there'll be if there's a suicide bomber at an event and all the Americans are trying to help and another guy rolls in with another suicide vest. Okay? I'm just telling you, man, 10 dudes with guns can do a amazing amount of damage at a music festival. Okay? Look at the guy in Vegas. That dude did a lot of damage, and it was one guy with some heavy firepower from 400 yards away, 300 yards away, shooting down into a crowd. I'm just telling you, man, like, you guys got to get your heads on a swivel. I'm telling you, I already told you what we're doing, man. We're lessening our exposure to big groups of people, okay? That doesn't go without saying. Grocery store is a threat, right? Parking lot is a threat. Think about this, man. Like, any high conglomeration of people is a problem. We got the movie theater shooting in Denver. Okay, I want you to think about these things so you can go research them and think about what would you do in that situation. I was just in the movies the other day. My first thought was, I don't really like these seats we're in. Okay, there is no exit on the right side of the theater. We're in the right side of the theater. The only exit is way down front. I got to climb over 7 or 8 rows of seats to get down out that exit. That's too much time, right? So now my only recourse is to be the last seat on the left. And if anybody comes in with ill content, then I got to go to war. I don't have a choice. My family's not going to be able to make it over 7 rows of seats with an active shooter. It's just not going to happen, okay? Talk to my wife about it. We're going to live in our exposure to movie theaters. You guys got to be thinking like, but I'm here to tell you, man, you go watch these videos on these attacks, and it'll help set you up for success in the long term for protecting you and your family.
So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
What kind of places do you think they're going to target?
So This is what's complicated. So Al-Qaeda's preference, as you can imagine, is symbols of the US or anything that causes economic damage, right? So capital is a great symbol. Capital was actually in, I think the capital is, a lot of people are targeting it, but the capital was in their propaganda just as 9/11 when they were memorializing 9/11, right? So the capital matters. I feel like bridges or any kind of public transportation always matters because it puts costs against us and it causes fear. But here's where it gets complicated. So remember, the terrorists might have their goal is they're going to attack the metro in DC, right? But remember, some of these terrorists are going to be ISIS. And remember, they can change location. So the ISIS guy might go down the metro and say, there's not many people down here. I'll kill 20, but there's a event going on. I'm going to go up there, right? And because ISIS is a little different. ISIS just wants mass casualty. So it's going to be interesting how it works with terrorists that came from different backgrounds and when they get choice.
So some of these terrorist organizations are looking for very strategic stuff like U.S. Capitol, basically U.S. governmental infrastructure and in elites. And then on the other hand, you have what I'm used to seeing when we were over there. They just look for the easiest, the easiest, biggest target because they want to kill the most amount of people in the quickest amount of time and get the most press out of it.
Yep.
And so that would lead me to believe universities, churches, stadiums,
farmers markets, those type of things.
How many people, how many fighters do you think we can expect in each attack?
Well, the 1,000 is all of them. So we're calling it's an Al-Qaeda planned attack, but within those 1,000 terrorists, some of them are ISIS because they want ISIS to be blamed. We have a theory on it. I hate to throw out theories. We think the actual
It's the first time I think you've ever thrown out a theory.
I know. I just then people are like, she's crazy. I think the more of the fighter types are going to be ISIS because then if they're caught, then they talk, I'm ISIS. I think more of the suicide bombers are going to be Al-Qaeda.
Will these attacks, do you think these attacks will happen simultaneously throughout the United States? Or will they be one day here, next day here, another one over here next week?
So they want them coordinated. I don't know if coordinated means all at the same time or if coordinated means we do it Monday, we do it Tuesday, we do it Wednesday, we do it Thursday, we do it Friday, just do 5 straight days. But they want it coordinated. What's coordinated mean? And the other argument we have, does coordinated also mean US and Europe at the same time? And is Europe all coordinated at the same time? So when they say coordinated, we don't know exactly what that means. So they could also be US and Europe at the same time.
Folks, the storm is coming. Batten down your hatches, make your preparation, and get ready. Do not get caught out in the open with your pants down. I'm warning you. I'm telling you. I'm trying to help y'all. Be great Americans. We know how to fight. Be smart. Have a plan. Be prepared.